Introduction. I heard somewhere that to know how great a man was is to see how greatly he's missed. If that is true, then John F. Kennedy was definitely a great man. After many years of being asked to write this book and to tell my story to the world, I have finally consented and hope that it may make a difference. That fateful day of November 22nd, 1963, when my beloved president was assassinated, not only changed the course of history, but also affected lives everywhere, especially that of a young 12-year-old girl from Dallas, Texas. The memories of that day and the ones thereafter are what I have to draw upon, since that day is still etched within my memory and still lives within my heart. I'm not attempting to answer questions concerning that day, but instead trying to let future generations know from a young girl's perspective that things can change through courage, dedication, and perseverance, if only truly one tries to make a difference. I am just another fellow American who loved and admired the President of the United States and all the good that he stood for. He challenged my generation to make a difference and to pass that torch to you. I write my story so that I may fulfill his dream. My story is the nation's story. So let us begin. November 21st, 1963. It was Thursday evening, and I was helping my mother prepare dinner. When I was clearing the table to set it, I noticed the evening newspaper with pictures and articles of the arrival of Mr. and Mrs. Kennedy. As I read, I exclaimed to Mother, "Mama, the Kennedys are going to be in Dallas. They're going to be right here." Smiling, she said, "Yes, I thought you might see that, and I've been thinking about maybe getting you and Jan, my younger sister, out of school tomorrow and going out to the airport to greet them." "Oh, Mama, can we? Please, please take us," I begged. "Well, I haven't even talked this over with your daddy yet," she said. This meant, of course, that I would be kept hanging until it had been okayed by my father. To me, this was just too important to have to wait. Just about that time, my father pulled into the driveway from work. Our little miniature collie, named none other than Lassie, ran to meet him as he got out of his car. "Finish setting the table, honey," said Mother. "Dinner is almost ready. Don't worry, I'll talk to your daddy." My mother was really a smart wife. She knew not to ask for anything until her husband had eaten a good meal first. All during dinner, I kept glancing over at her to see when she was going to ask him. About the time he was finally finishing his last bite of food, she casually said, "Oh, honey, look at these great pictures of the Kennedys." She handed the pictures to him. "Isn't it thrilling to think that they're actually here in Texas? I mean, after all, it's not every day that a real-life president comes to town, especially since it's the Kennedys. Did you know they are going to be right here in Dallas tomorrow?" "Yeah, how about that? It's pretty super, isn't it?" he replied. "Super," I thought to myself. "It's the most wonderful thing in the world." Daddy pushed himself from the table and headed to the den, which I knew meant he'd turn on the TV and be asleep before the picture came on the screen. I looked at my mother in desperation, and she got up and followed him, closing the door to the den behind her. I began clearing the dishes from the table, dying to know what she was saying to him. After I finished, I started off to my bedroom, although the curiosity was just too much to bear, and so I tried to listen through the door of the den from our entry hall. All I could make out was something about crowds and weather and all the traffic. Oh, who cares, I thought. We are talking about the President of the United States here. The suspense was killing me. So I went to my room and I threw myself on my canopy bed and tried to imagine what it would be like to meet or just see the president and his beautiful wife, Jacqueline. I remembered back in 1960 and how I had handed out handbills all over the neighborhood for his campaign. I thought of all I had learned from my study of the Kennedys and all that my grandmother, Geraldine Harry, known to our family as just Biggin, had told me of the Fitzgeralds and the Kennedys. I knew more about the history of the Kennedys than I knew about my own family. I had been taught all their names, and to hear Biggin talk, you would have thought Rose Kennedy and her had been talking over the back fence for years. She also taught me how wonderful John Kennedy was and how in 1948, when my Uncle Ralston was coming home from the war after serving in the Royal Canadian Air Force, he'd been hit on the head by a drunk driver in Sulphur, Oklahoma, and left paralyzed from the neck down. She worked under Governor Kerr at the time at the state capitol in Oklahoma City, and with his help went to Washington to get a bill passed since Uncle Ralston could not be admitted to a veterans hospital even though he had flown over 140 bombing missions for the U.S. The bill would allow any ally access to a veterans hospital. My grandmother was the head of Indian education and had given her whole life to helping the Indian nations. Having no luck with Eisenhower or Nixon, she went to her own Democratic Party to the young Senator John F. Kennedy. Kennedy welcomed her cordially and listened to her plea. He went immediately to work in helping to get the bill passed. He could have stopped there, but he didn't, and he made it a point to check on my uncle's condition and to make sure he was getting the best help possible. Needless to say, it was John Kennedy that helped give my Uncle Ralston 11 years of life until his death from pneumonia in 1960. The door to my room suddenly opened, and Mother stuck her head in, saying, "Kathey, Daddy says if the weather is okay tomorrow, he doesn't see any reason not to go." "What? Really? We can go?" "Yes, sweetheart. Isn't it great?" Then she came into the room, and we jumped and cheered like two football players who had scored the winning touchdown in the last minute of the game. "Oh, Mother, I love you so much. You are the greatest." About that time, my sister Jan came into the room to see what all the noise was, and we told her. And then there we all three were, just jumping and cheering for joy. My sister and I ran into the den and gave our father a big hug and kissed and thanked him for allowing us to go. "You're welcome, little darlings. You girls can't miss seeing the president." I was walking on air. I ran back to my bedroom and called my best friend, Patty LaBarba, who lived across the alley from me. When she answered the phone, I said with a shrill, "Patty, Mama's taking us to see the Kennedys tomorrow." "Wow, that's great," she said. Then we talked for a while and I hung up and finished my history homework. History and English literature were my favorite subjects in school. Mother stuck her head inside the door and said, "Kathey, you need to get ready for bed, honey. We've got a big day ahead of us tomorrow." She grinned from ear to ear. "Okay, Mama. Oh, by the way, what do you think I should wear to go see the Kennedys?" I asked. "Oh, I think your tan tweed jumper would look nice," she said. She closed my door as we said our goodnights. I went to my closet and pulled out my tan tweed jumper and white Ivy League blouse, along with a clear pair of bobby socks and my black suede penny loafers. I rolled my hair on my big brush rollers and took a hot bubble bath. After my bath, I put on my cowboy t-shirt and big fluffy house shoes. As I went over to my desk to gather up my books and to turn off my desk lamp, my history book fell to the floor at my feet, to a page that had a picture of President Kennedy in full color with the caption, "President of the United States." Picking up the book, I looked at his picture and said, "Good night, Mr. President. If all goes well, I'll be seeing you tomorrow." I got down on my knees and said my prayers and then crawled into bed. It took me a little while since I was so excited, but I finally drifted off to sleep. I had the most terrifying dream. I dreamt we were in downtown Dallas, we, meaning Mother, Jan, and I, when I noticed a gun being held out a second-story window of a big brick building. I ran toward the building, and suddenly I noticed a policeman standing in front. But he didn't seem to be hearing me as I shouted, "There's a gun up there!" So I ran so fast into the building I could feel my heart about to beat out of my chest. As I got inside, a man right in front of me in the hallway turned and yelled, "They are going to kill the president!" So I turned and ran back out to the policeman to tell him. I grabbed the policeman and told him someone was trying to kill the president, but when he turned towards me, he fell at my feet. He'd been shot. I began screaming and crying for help. I ran back into the building where all of a sudden there came the sound of gunfire. I crouched down and looked down at an adjacent hallway to an open doorway where 4 men ran and jumped into a waiting car outside. Then there it was. A blast! I awoke and found myself in a pool of sweat and tears. Running to my mother's room, I awoke her and told her of my dream between sobs. Now, honey. It was only a dream. Nothing like that could ever happen here. The president is well guarded by the Secret Service, and there is no way someone could even get close to him, especially here in Dallas. It's probably just something you ate that didn't agree with you that gave you such a nightmare. Now go back to bed, sweetheart, and try to get some sleep. There's nothing to concern yourself about. Sweet dreams this time. I love you. As I went back to my room and crawled into my bed, the dream still haunted me. I kept trying to reassure myself with what Mother had said. She was probably right, I told myself. With all those Secret Service guys, the president won't be safe. I finally fell asleep.